Today I'm going to talk to you about how I fixed the headliner string for a 2005 BMW Convertible. I'm doing this because so many other people have posted videos I've found to be incredibly helpful for fixing things. Please note this is just the way I fixed it. It may not be the way you're supposed to fix it, but it did work. Here are the things that I used that you may need. Pretty simple stuff. You have it all pretty much at home. Scotch tape, long nose pliers, scissors, string, but it needs to be beaded twine from the hardware store, and I don't have them to show you. I'll show you in a minute. 2 small nuts that the string will fit through. Okay, next. Here's the twine that I used, premium braided mason twine. As I described earlier, I got the number 18 by 250 feet, more than you're going to need for this job, but it seemed to work quite well. I got the yellow, not that it makes any difference. Obviously when the top is up, the string is fully concealed so you don't see it. It's only when you're moving it up and down you see the twine, and I like the yellow just because it was easier to see when I was moving it in between the eyelets and moving around the top rather than the black. So this is what we're fixing today. You can see the yellow twine that I've attached to the headliner, and I'm going to show you how I went about doing that. One of the important parts of this is to check the headliner string on the other side because they are identical, and I use this one on the left side, the passenger side, as a guide to the fix I did on the driver's side. So there's actually 2 strings that connect the headliner. It's the lower strings that I've talked about in this video. There's actually an upper string as well, and this I'm showing the black string on the passenger side. It connects on the headliner, and I don't know if you can see, it goes behind the structure there and eventually connects down to this little washer nut mechanism. So it's a very simple connection, and this one's intact on the passenger side, so no need to replace it, but I did want folks to know there are actually 2 different strings that attach the headliner.
Go ahead.
So what I did was, as you can see, here is the nut that I promised, and I just tied a knot in the twine. As I mentioned, it's important to get the beaded twine because if it's just threaded, it's likely to fray more quickly than the beaded twine. So I tied a knot and then stuck the string through that nut. From there, I wrapped the end of a long piece in tape, the Scotch tape, and then cut it at an angle. The only reason to do that is when you're fitting it through these holes, it's a little easier than just having the twine itself, which tends to fray out and then you can't get it through the hole. So if you had the tape on the end and cut it at an angle, it'll fit right through. So I've got maybe 3 feet of string to start, and I just threaded it through this little connection in the plastic piece connected to the headliner. And then I went back and forth between the driver's side and the passenger side to see how the connection got made through these various eyelets. The reason I use those nuts to connect the string is this is the original connector with a little bit of the string sticking through it, and as you can tell, it's sort of a compression fixture, so there's really no way to use this again. That's why I use the nut. So you can see here there are a total of, I think, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 eyelets that you're going to have to work through. As again, I started here at the top, and then you work your way back and you eventually end up here with the same string here at the bottom. Started.
Go.
So really the hardest part of this for me was the string eventually goes through a spring-loaded nut, and so you have to pull that spring-loaded piece down. I've pulled it down here with my fingers and the string so you could see where it is, but of course when you don't have the string through there, you got to find some other way to pull that spring-loaded eyelet down. So what I did was I tried to reach in there with the long nosed pliers, pull it down, and while it was down, put the string through there to go on to the next eyelet. But that to me was the hardest part of this repair. So I started with the top hole and then went back into the mechanism. Of course, when I was done, I came back towards the front of the car and fished the string through that lower connection, through that plastic piece, and connected it to another nut that I have there. And here's where you really need to just figure out how much play in this wire do I really string do I really need, and using the other side as a guide.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to put the top up here so we can see how the headliner is supposed to fit around the mechanism. So there you see the headliner is fully concealing the top mechanism itself. That's the way the headliner is supposed to work. I have it a little bit tight, unfortunately, and that was the other challenge, is to try and make sure you have the right amount of string so you have the right amount of play. I tried to use the other side as a guide for that, but it wasn't totally scientific. The last thing I would say is that when you're done with this, if this is your wife's car, like it was for me, it's important that you tell her it took about 3 times as long as it actually did, because sometimes the sympathy vote gets you more than the actual completion of the task. Thanks for watching. Hope this helps.